Yo, what's good? It's your boy JG Tennis back with another video today. So today I'm gonna be ranking my top 10 college football teams, favorite college football teams of all time. Yeah, so let's see how this will go. Alright. At number 10, I have 2009 Alabama. 2009 Alabama went 14-0, beat Texas in the national championship. Excuse me. They had a lot of great wins, including a win against Tim Tebow's Florida Gators in the SEC championship. They also had some close victory against Tennessee, where they had a block kick. They even had a comeback win against Auburn in Jordan Hare. That team was the start of Nick Saban's dynasty at Alabama. It was a great year and one of my favorite teams. At number 9, I have 2022 Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia Bulldogs have been a great team. 15-0. They had a close victory against Missouri, and they beat Tennessee when Tennessee was ranked number 1. They came back and won against Ohio State in the college football playoffs and beat TCU 65-7 in the national championship. This team was coming off of a great win in 2021, and they had a particularly great year, which is unbelievable, of course. 22-0, 15-0 in 2022. That was great. At number 8, 2008 Florida Gators. Florida Gators with Tim Tebow. They had one loss that year, which was to Ole Miss by 1 point at home. After that, Tim Tebow would make a famous speech, which would grant him and his team to the national championship, where they beat Alabama in the SEC championship and then beat Oklahoma in the BCS national championship. That team showed resilience, where after a loss, it changed everything about themselves, their mentality and everything else. It was an unbelievable year for them, while surprisingly had one of the greatest quarterbacks in college football history. At number 7 is 2019 LSU. Of course, you know, and this is from my opinion, my favorite teams, by the way. 2019 LSU can be known as probably, in some occasions, the best team of all time. But their season was very surprising. Nobody expected LSU to come out and have a season like that. And they surprised so many teams. They beat Florida, they beat Alabama on the road, they beat Georgia in the SEC championship, they beat Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma in the college football playoff, and they beat Clemson, the defending champs, who are on a winning streak in the national championship. That team was unbelievable. At number 6, I have 2017 Alabama. 2017 Alabama had a crazy year. Started the year off as the best team in the country, 11-0. Then lost in Jordan Hare to Auburn, 26-14. But after a Wisconsin loss to Ohio State, and Alabama having a big win against big ranked opponents like Mississippi State and LSU, and Ohio State having 2 losses, especially a loss to Iowa by 35 5, Alabama made the playoffs at number 4, beat number 1 Clemson, and came back and beat Georgia in the national championship on a 2nd and 26 from Devontae Smith, who will become a Bama legend for life. At number 5, we have 2010 Auburn. 2010 Auburn is the greatest Auburn team of all time. They had the Heisman Trophy winner Cam Newton, and I forgot 2019 LSU had Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow and 2 great wide receivers, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Auburn had Cam Newton, who carried that team all the way. Started the year off great, including a comeback win against Alabama and not Jordan Hare, and Bryant Denny. They won the SEC championship against South Carolina and won a national championship against Oregon on a game-winning field goal in a thriller. At number 4, 2011 Alabama. Probably one of the greatest defenses of all time. 2011 Alabama can be up there with one of the greatest teams of all time. Their only loss was to LSU, which they then got their revenge in the national championship, beating teams like Arkansas, who was in the top 10, beat Auburn and Jordan Hare. After that loss to LSU, they rebounded and got themselves to number 3 in the nation. Then after an Oklahoma State loss to Iowa State, Alabama was in number 2, and after winning out, they were ranked number 2 and played LSU in the national championship, which they then beat 21-0. So they can basically say that they've beaten everybody they've played that year. At number 3, 2012 Alabama. 2012 Alabama was one of the best Alabama teams ever. They had a great year. Started the year off good with some great wins, including a comeback win against LSU on a game-winning drive. Then they had a loss to Johnny Manziel, the Heisman Trophy winner, at home against Texas A&M. After that loss, they rebounded, where they won out and they beat Georgia in a classic SEC championship game where both teams were number 2 and number 3. Then came Alabama plays Notre Dame in the national championship, and Alabama won 42-14. And the Alabama versus Georgia game was the real national championship, by the way. At number 2, 2015 Alabama. That was the team that I watched for a whole year. The first Alabama team that made me love Alabama. That team lost to Ole Miss after they lost 2 consecutive times to Ole Miss, 2014 and 2015. And everybody was saying that the dynasty was dead. But then after that, Alabama went on a crazy run. They beat Arkansas, won against Auburn, beat LSU when LSU had a Heisman frontrunner, Leonard Fournette, but then Derrick Henry became the frontrunner. Alabama then won the SEC championship against Florida, won 38-0 against Michigan State, and then beat Clemson in the classic 45-40 in the national championship to be back on top. And at number 1, the final Nick Saban national championship, the final year Alabama won the national championship, 2020 Alabama, my favorite team of all time. 2020 Alabama was, in my opinion, the greatest college football team ever. Usually in years, Alabama would sometimes give you heart attacks. But this year, they didn't give me any heart attacks because they had an offense that you could depend on. If a team was to go up by 7, they would easily score back, and then they would go up. Alabama that year, only twice they didn't lead. And every other year, Alabama was either losing by double digits or sometimes even lost by double digits. But this Alabama team never failed to amaze. They won 14 out of their 15 games by double digits. The only team that gave them a rough time was Florida, where Florida in the SEC championship, where Alabama won by 6. Alabama won against Texas A&M, who had a great year that year too, probably the best year they've ever had since Johnny Manziel in 2012, when they were number 5 in the nation. Alabama then made the college football playoff, beat Notre Dame, and then played the best national championship game they've ever played against Ohio State. And that is my favorite college football teams of all time.